Hello, this is Cattail. I am just making a video, honestly, just to talk about some things. I'll have some drawing going on in the background. Really, this is just a test, and to see if I want to do this kind of stuff in the future. But first of all, hi, how you doing? Okay, so let's just get into it. Welcome to Cattail Talks. This will probably just be a separate YouTube channel where I talk about whatever and whenever. I wouldn't expect anything related to consistent uploads, nor would I expect anything related to polish, but if my streams weren't enough of a podcast already, here you go. To start off, I just want to talk about, I think we'll start with some of the design choices of PvZ2, and then we'll snowball from here. Plants vs. Zombies 2 is a game that I like to play. Well, I like to play. I think we should start there. So way back when the game first came out, Plants vs. Zombies 2 was a way different beast. It was a game that had like a star system, that kind of progression, and getting keys and stars in order to unlock the next world was like really tedious. But looking back on it, it was probably not as bad as I think it was. Generally, though, the common attitude back then was that PvZ2 was decent, but the microtransactions were a big problem. They weren't something people talked about nearly as much as they whine about today, but that's just something they did. Back then, yeah, microtransactions kind of sucked. You either had to pay to unlock the new worlds, or you had to use stars. That was the thing. I think, generally, though, Plants vs. Zombies 2 started off in a pretty good spot. But then the 1.7 update happened. And it is, I think, well, it was the most controversial update in PvZ2. But what it did was it took all the levels and took some of the star objectives for said levels, and it made them into a linear format. And that, at the time, I did not like the change, and I still don't like it, I don't think. I think the star system, while flawed in execution, due to not being able to unlock more than, or get more than one star at a time, it was a great way to add some replayability and challenge to levels. All they had to do was not make the star system a requirement for anything, and I think it would have been fine. But of course they did, and then they regretted it. But instead of just getting rid of the star system, just getting rid of the star requirement, they got rid of everything. And that just doesn't feel good. On the bright side, though, Far Future came out soon after, but I think this is when a bit of a problem started to become known. Well, not less known, but it started to reveal itself. People didn't really know about it yet, I should say. And this problem has to do with the level design. And that's what I'm going to be getting into a little bit later. But still got to finish up this history lesson. So the level design in PvZ2 started going through a very interesting change. You can see this most with the jetpack zombie, but it kind of also pertains to the shield zombie and the robocone. But in far future, bulkier zombies or more special zombies start to appear earlier and earlier in the levels. So what that would do is it would force the player to act faster. Now, this was fine in far future because they gave you a ton of plant food, but it's a problem that we'll have to talk about. Basically, all I need to know for now is with far future is yes, they added starfruit as a paid plant, but they added a lot of good free plants, and I think far future really helps everybody get excited and stay excited, really. Plus, next was Dark Ages. Well, a medieval world. And we were all excited for that. Because, medieval, that's like an awesome time period. Of course the medieval era is going to be cool, right? Well, I don't know the years, so don't quote me on this, but Dark Ages starts to get some leaks and stuff, but the dev diary happens. And Dark Ages Part 1. So Dark Ages is going to be split into 2 parts. And I was a little upset. I think everybody was pretty upset at that. But what we got was confirmation of mushrooms coming back. And we saw a little bit of the nighttime mechanics. Now, Coffee Bean was deconfirmed, and that didn't leave the best taste in my mouth, but it's just what it is, I suppose. So Coffee Bean was deconfirmed, mushrooms were coming back, specifically Fume Shroom, Hypno Shroom, Sun Shroom, and Puff Shroom. Yeah, Hypno Shroom was going to be a premium once again. And we were kind of getting the vibe that premiums are just going to show up once every update. And that was true. But for now, we just dealt with it. Dark Ages Part 1 rolls around. And then Jester happened. So Jester was the first problem I think we can talk about here. Because Jester became kind of a huge issue. Really, Jester, basically what it is, if you don't know, Jester basically just can't be hurt by normal projectiles. Fume Shroom was made to counter this instead of adding some like screen door type zombie or anything like that. They added Jester. But this started a very bad trend of zombie design that would only continue. So Dark Ages Part 2 is going to roll around. People are excited. Magnet Shroom was revealed. Magnet Shroom is awesome. Everybody loves Magnet. And then we get Peanut, which is a plant that people were excited for and sounded good on paper. But, well, if you've ever played PvZ2, you know how that turned out. So, that happened. And, well, I don't think people were extremely happy with that. We got the King Zombie, which I think is a good zombie. But then we got the Wizard. And once again, we have issues. Because the Wizard basically just shuts down so many things as a ranged zombie that is debuffs and doesn't have a counter, this became a very dangerous precedent to set. Bulky backliners, well, not really bulky, but backliners with no counters. Magnet Shroom was the only other plant aside from Peanut in Dark Ages Part 2 as well. People were not happy about that, and I'm still not happy about that. Like, we could have at least gotten, like, Ice Shroom or something, man. Like, you had Iceberg Lettuce as plant food. Ice Shroom could not have been that hard to add. Even if it was redundant, people would have just been happy to see it. Would have been better than just Magnet. So that happened. And then the next world didn't have a silhouette. So we get Big Wave Beach. Now, Big Wave Beach was pretty big at the time, not for its difficulty, but actually because of the return of aquatic plants, lily pad and tanglekelp, and people were excited about that. Nobody cared about Bowling Bowl, but Chomper was coming back. Yes, he was premium, but Chomper was back. This was teased at the end of Dark Age Part 2, but I'm skipping over that because it doesn't really matter all that much. Really, the most important thing, though, with Big Wave Beach was things got strange. Now, levels have gotten a little bit rushier in Far Future and Dark Ages, but it wasn't bad, per se. But then something strange happened. Big Wave Beach started introducing large swarms of zombies pretty fast. Now, it was still manageable, mind you. The difficulty in Big Wave Beach comes solely from the zombies, but things weren't looking great for a while. And you can't really blame people for getting a little skeptical, I think, of PodCap at this point. But Big Wave Beach was received with a lot of criticism for its difficulty, so in Part 2, what they decided to do is double down on it and release Octo and Fisherman, two of the most infamous zombies of all time. Banana Launcher's great, and Guac is great, so at least they knocked it out of the park with plants, but then we have... Okay, a little side tangent here, Homing Thistle. Homing Thistle, in theory, Homing Thistle is okay. But the problem with Homing Thistle is that Cattail existed and was right there. And instead we got Homing Thistle, which just does something completely different. It's like they misunderstood what Cattail was and how good Cattail was. I think their fear was that they didn't want to make Cattail locked to Big Wave Beach because they felt that people would not buy them. Which I don't know why they didn't just make them amphibious at that point, but whatever. Oh, Ghost Pepper came out. Ghost Pepper was awesome. Holiday Plants, I'll be skipping over them. Frostbite Caves, I'll actually speed through this a little bit. But Frostbite Caves is actually where things started to go very far downhill. The difficulty was dialed back a ton because of the controversy. But that's not the problem with Frostbite Caves. Frostbite Caves started a very dangerous pattern with more so the level design than anything else, but also the plant design. See, Frostbite Caves introduced freezing winds, and to combat it, Pepper Poult and the Hot Potato. The problem is that Pepper Poult and the Hot Potato are god-awful. So your main answers, without having to spend money, to the main gimmick of this world, they're trash. They remedied this slightly in Part 2 with Fire Pea Shooter costing gems. And then Rutabaga was busted. Also, Hurricane is my favorite plant, and that came out during Part 1, but that has nothing really to do with the world itself. See, the thing is that Frostbite Caves really started to suffer from level design. It didn't get unbearable yet, though. It was just starting to show signs of... It was starting to show signs. Things were starting to go downhill, and, well, Lost City comes out. Well, Lost City was the most rushy world of all time. And they unapologetically just kind of did that. With no excuse. The plants in Lost City, well, there's Red Stinger, which is good, and then everything... Stalia was busted, and then everything else is kind of trash, so... Lost City comes and goes. Nobody expected it. Nobody really was hyped for it. but it happened. Neon Mixtape Tour was next, and Neon Mixtape Tour was a sleeper hit, really. Nobody expected it to be good, but it was. And it blew everyone out of the water. I think at that point, with the triple combo of Frostbite Caves, Big Wave Beach, and Lost City, people were not looking forward to the new world all too much. But then something interesting happens with Neon Mixtape Tour. The plants suck. Soul Restrucker, less so, but it's still not my favorite. In the right hands, it's pretty busted, but Cactus returns, and it's a little fanfare because once again, it's a paid plant. No one cares. But what's interesting is that the zombie design gets brutal. I did not talk about Lost City zombie design. I probably should have. It sucked. It was basically just gesture on steroids for half the time. But, you know, we learned to live with it. And then Neon Mixtape Tour comes out. We have something very shocking. The zombies are weak, but they kill things instantly. This is a very dangerous way to design your zombies. And to just design your game in general. Hard punishing players for just, you know, not dealing with everything instantly. Level design is also getting very rushy. Lots of bucket heads very early. It was not a good time for a lot of people. Honestly, though, Neon Mixtape Tour kind of saved itself solely through its music. The world itself is god-awful, but the music made everybody kind of just blind to that. But the level design was getting to unstable levels. And nothing was being done to fix it. So, then comes Jurassic Marsh. And all hell breaks loose. To start Jurassic Marsh's plants are absolutely busted and stupid and should never have made it past playtesting. I don't understand how they did. The fact that they did is, like, I think it says a lot on just PopCap's part. I don't know, man. I don't know how Jurassic Marsh even happened. Like, they could have had, like, zombie dinosaurs, but no. Instead, so here's the kicker. Special zombies, forget that. We have dinosaurs. But instead of dinosaurs being good, or doing anything that's, like, interesting, what they just do is make levels unbearable. Kicking zombies into, like, column 4 unapologetically. And, well, you don't get to have a defense at all. You wanted to put something in the back column? Pterodactyl. You wanted to put something in front of column 3? Well, Raptor's going to kick him right into column 3, so you can't do anything about that. You wanted to have any defense at all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's Ankylosaurus. And you don't get to play the game anymore. Jurassic Marsh was god-awful. But the next world was going to be the finale one. And people were just ignoring the previous stuff. Jurassic Marsh's plants carried that world for a lot of people. I don't think we should have given it any credit, but people did. And, well, that's kind of how we ended up with modern day. Shadow plants are cool. I'll give it that. But anything beyond that, just... The newspaper zombies buffed obscenely for no reason. Balloon Zombie was completely redone for no reason. And... well... I think All-Star, interesting change. They just should have done it better. And Superfan Imp just doesn't matter. Portals. I actually like Portals, but Modern Day is the worst offender of what I like to call... Well, it's the second worst offender of what I like to call rushy level design. It was the worst offender back when Imps made the next wave start instantly, which Modern Day was a very big fan of doing. But that was fixed later, because it was stupid. So, Modern Day's level design goes something like this. You get to start out, and you have 2 waves, where at least 4 total zombies show up. And then you have your huge wave. Number 1. Yeah, that's right. You have 2 waves until your first huge wave. And then once that huge wave hits, well, I hope you have your defense set up, because we're spamming newspapers and portals and even gargantuars sometimes. Who knows? Nobody does. Because the levels are god-awful. They expect you to have all the tools, and you don't get any of the time to actually prepare yourself for anything. Not to mention, Moonflower had a sluggish recharge, and still has it. Actually, I don't know why I said had. But Moonflower has a sluggish recharge. So you're basically just using the primal plants because they're busted. Or you're rich and you spent money. But either way, unless you have a specific number of plants or you sold out, then you're just kind of screwed because zombies show up insanely fast. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then after that, they stop adding worlds, and then later we get the power plants update. I mean, there were some epic quests in between, but the electric current one can die in a fire. The aloe one was cool, but it just made me wish we got like nighttime versions of the other worlds and like more plants. They kept adding premiums that didn't matter, like pomegranate. Why the heck is pomegranate a plant? But overall, they just butchered everything. Like, they had the good start. Before 1.7, they had a great start. Yes, the premiums were there, but the premiums were never the problem with PvZ2. It was never the microtransactions. PvZ2's biggest problem to start was just how it failed to really utilize its own resources correctly, I think. The fundamental change, I'll probably make a separate video on this, is the 25 sun meta becoming the 50 sun meta. Honestly, the worst change ever done. There's a reason a lot of mods do the 25 sun meta. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, PvZ1 good, PvZ2 bad. No. The 25 sun meta forces the game to be slower. And the 50 sun meta forces it to be faster. And, well, if you have a 50 sun meta, you can get away with spamming a lot of weaker zombies. Because, well, what are you gonna do? Your player's already gonna have, like, 5 winter melons by the first flag anyway. Of course you're gonna spam. Because there's no challenge otherwise. Because the 50 sun meta makes it so it's all or nothing. Either you have a full defense or you don't. You can get your full defense done by the end of the first flag consistently. Even without things like Gold Bloom. Even with just like the basic sunflower. It's incredibly insane. And there's no reason that it had to be like that. But it was. And so PvZ2 forced itself to move faster. And when moving faster, you realize, some of these plants are garbage. I better add some premiums that are, pretty overpowered to help deal with this stuff. Because, Big Wave Beach happened, and it was insanely hard because the plants given, the average player was not going to be able to use Banana Launcher or Magnifying Grass. I'm just saying. So then Frostbite Caves comes along, and they're just like, okay, Hurricane Fire Pea Shooter, let's just make premiums great. They made them gem plants, probably just because Big Wave Beach was such a disaster that they wanted to smooth things over. Lost City had Lava Wava, but then they added Toadstool, which is just better chomper. And then after that, there's like, right, we can charge money for these things. And so they did. They charged money for Cactus, they charged money for EB, they charged money for Grape Shot and Cold Snap. Violet was gems, but then Escape Route was money, so, they had like one more gem plant. Yeah, you get 5 gem plants, and then like Ghost Pepper and Sapfling. Was Sapfling a gem plant? I think it was a paid plant. Like Ghost Pepper and Dandelion, but those are seasonal, so if you didn't pick them up when they came around, then you just don't get them. So that was a thing. And basically, it just forced the levels to be faster, and it ruined itself. Just by, nature of existing in that form. I think I'm going to end this here, honestly, because the more I talk about it, it's just going to get more into the whole 25 versus 50 sun meta problem. I'd want to do that as a different video, but overall, I think just the level design was forced to be faster because of PvZ2's insistence on having a 50 sun meta and its reluctance to create, more lock and key based designs, I guess. I mean, if you look at PvZ2 China, then they have like all these specific plants that counter specific zombies. And like, people knock it, but I think as long as they had more counters to each zombie, like multiple plants could counter it, then I would think that design would be fine. I mean, that's what the original PvZ was like. And you don't see many people knocking that, right? So I think just zombie design in general forced plants power creep, and then zombie power creep, and then levels became rushier instead of the zombies being more threatening. Because I think what happened along a certain point was they realized that they'd gone too far, so they had to force the levels to be rushier. And then they changed their level design philosophy, I think, to make it more, less that the zombies hinder the plants and more so that they kill them. Lost City, you can kind of tell, is the middle ground for that, because part 1 had like Excavator, and then part 2 transitioned to Turquoise Skull. Then Neon Mixtape Tour and Jurassic Marsh were all about destroying plants, and even modern day. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the whole PvZ2 history and level design, and I'll see you next time, I guess. Cattail signing off.